Hello, good afternoon. We are continuing here in Circle the Med forum with a session that is related with a new EU restoration policy combining green and blue. I have the honor to have two distinguished guests with me, Professor Zacharias Ierotheos from the University of Patras, the Department of Civil Engineering in the University of Patras, and Professor Stefanidis Georgios, who is also from the University of Patras, the Department of Civil Engineering. Let us start by me asking you, why do we need a nature restoration law? I mean, what do you expect from such a law?
First of all, I would like to thank you for the invitation, and I feel very honored that you have been inviting me, since I believe that this is a very important forum for Greece and the Mediterranean in general. Why do we need a restoration law? I think sometimes that we forget that we are part of nature, and by protecting nature, we're protecting ourselves. So why do we need restoration law? We need restoration law in order to protect the ecosystems, the habitats, the living creatures, including us. Because sometimes we forget, living in the cities, that we are part of nature. And unfortunately, in the last 30 or 40 years, we have done very serious damage in the ecosystems, and many of them cannot be restored by themselves. So we need to help the ecosystems being restored in order to enjoy life in nature.
When it comes to the implementation of the law, what would you comment about that? Are we satisfied? Are we at the start of the process? I mean, how do you see it?
This law is going to start hopefully in the beginning of of next year, 2023, and is going to ask from the European countries to create nature restoration plans, which means that these plans, they are going to be targeted on the ecosystems that need to be restored. So we need to find in each European country which are these ecosystems, which are the pressures on the ecosystem, what is the problem, and then to find solutions to these problems that the pressures created. So the European countries have 2 years to create these national restoration plans, and we have, let's say, only 5 years in order to restore 20% of the European ecosystems. And we have 20 years to restore all European ecosystems. So we don't have enough time. So we need to start immediately.
And when it comes to the national plans that you are discussing about, they have a regional aspect, or they have to be, I mean, coming from bottom down?
They have,
or there are regional, municipal.
They have to be
level.
regional, like the ones we created for the water.
Ah,
so
okay,
it is almost the same, I think.
You are running a very relevant project currently, an EEA grants project, which is called BLUE-GREENWAY. It is totally related with the discussion that we are having. What is what is concerning the project? I mean, what are the main elements of this project?
Yes, this project is called the BLUE-GREENWAY Project, and it's been funded by EA and Norway grants. And it's a project related to the restoration of aquatic ecosystems, and specifically with the ones that they have problems with eutrophication. So we need to find solutions to the aquatic ecosystems that they have eutrophication and anoxia problems.
How can we restore these ecosystems? I mean, first of all, is eutrophication dangerous? It's a matter of a risk of a problem?
Yes, eutrophication is very dangerous. Many people have been writing about this problem. And today, we see that in order to restore eutrophication, we have to deal with nitrogen and phosphorus. So the problem is that we have decreasing of biodiversity, and eutrophication is the reason why we have decreased biodiversity in these ecosystems. So the restoration is the only tool that can bring the ecosystem and life in the ecosystem back.
So we have the tools to restore these eutrophic ecosystems. I mean, does technology and the knowledge that we have till now provide us with the tools to apply such solutions?
Yes, we do have these tools. There has been research in the previous years about creating innovative geoengineering materials, which are very important to restore the ecosystem. What I mean by geoengineering materials, it is natural clays like bentonite, zeolite, perlite. So it's natural clays that can absorb phosphorus and nitrogen from the water. But in order to have better absorption, we need to modify them a little bit. So depending on the problem and depending on the ecosystem, we can use different tools, different materials to restore the aquatic ecosystem.
So from what I understand, we are speaking about natural products. We are not speaking about chemicals or additives that we are adding in the ecosystems. We are speaking about natural solutions, and we are also witnessing an issue of circularity, of circular economy. I mean, how?
Yes, there are two ways to use these materials. One way is to use it as a slurry. It's a material that can be mixed with water from the ecosystem and be placed in the surface, and then it absorbs when it goes down to the bottom of the water. It absorbs the nitrogen and phosphorus of the water column. And there is another way, the use of floating bags, which these bags have this material. They can be put it in the water, they can absorb the nitrogen and phosphorus, and then after a while you can take them out and you can use them as soil improvers or fertilizers. So this is what we say, what is circular economy, because we use these materials in order to restore the ecosystem, and then to use these materials as a soil improver in the catchment.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so how does the environment and the people around these areas could benefit from this kind of solutions? How do you see it, I mean, evolving?
The environment will be definitely be in better condition after this restoration. The habitats will be able to bring more species in order to live in a habitat which is not anoxic. There is all the physicochemical parameters that they need to keep the species in the water. And of course the society and the people of the area can benefit from different new jobs that they can be created, like the fishing that was lost during the eutrophication period, and then it can come back. The tourism, because the eutrophic areas are not so attractive to people. So when this restoration takes place, the tourism will be back in these areas.
Okay, perfect. So from what I understand, we are promoting some solutions that are relying on some future funding. So I would like to move now to Professor Stefanidis and connect what we were discussing about with the following question. So how can we convince the stakeholders, how can we convince authorities to invest in such solutions, in nature-based solutions? And I would like to welcome you also in the discussion, Professor Stefanidis. Thank you very much for being here today.
Yes, also I would like to thank you very much for having me here and join you again in your program. To better address your question, I would first like to remind that in order to convince, as you suggested, we have to bring about something new. So in our case, we maintain that we are bringing in a smart innovation into the fore. And this is because we look at the whole system, the ecosystem that includes the land and sea, green and blue together. So this means that we address the land problem where we wish to avoid polluting the water, for instance, with agricultural chemicals, together with the aquatic problem, where not only do we wish to ensure stopping the pollution from man's activities in the water, but also to reduce the pollution that has originated at land. And we have examples where, for instance, life in a lake is near extinction. For instance, we can look at Macedonia, Lakes Koronia, Vegoritis, and so on. In that way, we can convince more easily the investor.
So we are saying about, we are discussing about these dead lakes, let's say, that have faced extinction and they cannot be restored anymore. What do you mean? What is this kind of smart innovation in the project, and what is actually brings? What is the new tools and solutions and abilities that it brings?
Okay, let's put it very simply. What we need to consider is that in the past, we have worked often successfully using classical approaches. And what do classical approaches do? They do very well. They are good at solving problems vertically, so working in a silo, so to speak, without looking horizontally at the interactions between systems. So they are not as successful when one system affects the other very substantially. But now we're in an era of smart cities and communities, and in this era, this is not the case. We have to consider all the interactions together in order to generate successful policies.
Were there some critical obstacles that you needed to overcome? Were there any barriers?
Yes, as Professor Zacharias noted, we are working on this project even as we speak. And we have to consider that in order to be effective, we have to work at the grassroots level. In other words, knowing that we are in an era of smart cities, we recognize that the citizen is at center stage. But in our effort to inform and engage the citizen, we must also increase the capacity of the public sector to support the citizen. And we also have to increase the capacity of, let's say, the private sector, because it's the private sector that offers solutions that we wish to be environment sensitive. So we need to support all three, and we need to do this by using as much as possible deep training techniques by generating policies that consider the problem from multiple perspectives, not just one single perspective, and by using different types of expertise in doing that.
Speaking about policies, what do you consider what is the role of governance bringing this kind of sustainable solutions to the overall, to face the overall problem?
Okay, this is a very good question. We work with governance in our everyday life. What we need to do, nevertheless, is to now take advantage of the new intelligence tools that are offered to us in order to transform the solution systems that exist, always having in mind the needs of the citizens. So first, we need to transform governance by providing deep training to the public sector. Second, we must increase the availability of computing tools that use new technologies. And if we wish to add one third item, is we must strengthen the connectivity across the classical governance boundaries, beyond the administrative boundaries, across intelligent citizens and across the now becoming more intelligent public authorities, so that they all work together in bringing about solutions and capitalizing on what we have.
So going forward, how do you envisage capitalizing on these innovative results and bringing them forward in other, let's say, fora or to relevant stakeholders from outside the research community?
Okay, this is a challenge. We have to find ways to put together these different people with different expertise, and we also have to find ways to integrate new information that exists somewhere, but we now have to communicate this information using new tools. And I would say, for instance, using drones. It's a new way of looking at things from above. And our objective is to enrich the awareness of governance in order to be alert to emergencies, even though emergencies may begin beyond the boundaries. So different authorities must work better together to bring about these sustainable smart solutions. And together we must work to generate policies that consider the whole problem, not just its parts, and of course all within the circular economy.
And final question, which is addressed to both of you. So from what I understand here, there are several programs, several projects dealing with aquatic side and the blue blue aspect of the problem, and there are several other projects that are related with green economy. Do you see a gap? Do you see a barrier or a lack of programs in the EU and in general in all the funding programs for the collaboration of blue and green growth and both aspects of collaboration? Professor Zacharias?
Yes, I can see that, and I can see the reason why there is this gap. The reason is because it is very difficult for the scientists and the community, scientific community in general, to have a perspective for the catchment, which is the polluter, and for the sea, which takes all the pollution, which are two completely different scientific subjects. So I understand why the scientific community has a problem dealing with so different subjects. But I think that in our case, we tried and it seems to work. So hopefully our collaboration with Professor Stefanidis will give the better results that we expected.
Yes, because from what we understand is another source, the source of pollution, it's deriving from land, and the whole lakes and the aquatic areas are receiving the burden. Mm-hmm. And there are different also scientific approaches when it comes to aquatic and when it comes to land. Mm-hmm. Do you see that progressing? I mean, the collaboration between both sides to progress in order to give a very good result, because such an example in a closed area is a very good one, because collaboration is going on and it's feasible. Professor Stefanidis, what do you think about that?
Well, to answer your question, we have to refer to the innovative work that Professor Zacharias is doing, which includes, for instance, picking up the remains of our work in the aquatic environment. So when we reduce the pollution there are some remains of the chemicals, and then we can take, for instance, these back to the land and offer to the users, to the extent that they're willing to use, so to speak, used items. So this, in a circular economy, this makes much sense. There is this continuing cooperation between the two sides, and we can try to bring about a continuing feedback between the two until, of course, the problem is solved. And this is our wish, to continue working together so that we sensitize the two different communities, green growth and blue growth, and in that way bring about comprehensive solutions.
So we are speaking about active and actual circular economy practices. Thank you very much for today. Thank you very much for being here in Circle the Med, and we hope that more projects like this will be developed, and you will be in the heart of their exploitation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you also.